franchise secrets, Erik Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a Zor, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Hey, in this episode of Franchise Secrets, I interview two good friends of mine, David Schuck and Pete Hansen. These two are both building empires in the Club Pilates system. One is doing it by self-funding, and one of them is doing it private equity backed. So Pete, he's a self-funded guy. He's got 16 Club Pilates, and he is growing at a really strong clip. David, on the other hand, has 50 Club Pilates, and he's growing at an even faster clip. So we get into that. What are the advantages and disadvantages? What do they wish they had about the other's life right now? Why is it easier going self-funded or better? Why is it easier or better going private equity backed? Lifestyle, look at it from a lifestyle standpoint, look at it from a workload standpoint, who calls the shots, what's it like not being able to call the shots all the time. So this is going to be a fun one, building empires, doing it self-funding or private equity backed. I hope you enjoy this episode with my two buddies, David and Pete. Guys, old Liberty friends, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Erik. This will be fun.
Yeah, good to be here.
I thought about having the two of you on because my friend Justin Donald had somebody on his podcast, two brothers that grew different businesses, different models, and had an exit at the same month or the same quarter. And one built it bootstrapped and one built it private equity backed. And at the end of the day, from what I understand with them, is they kind of walked away with the same amount of money at the end of the day, built it two different ways. We won't get into exits or anything like that with us here, but it gave me the idea, like, you two are friends. We've known each other for a long time, and you guys both are building and growing Club Pilates and expanding there, but you're doing it two very different ways. David, you're doing it basically backed by private equity. I think you're about 50 locations right now. And Pete, you're doing it all bootstrapped, and you have about 16 locations right now. Bootstrap meaning you don't have other like money from private equity. There might be money that might be banks, it might be some different partners, but it's not private equity backed. So I just want to have some fun conversation, kind of look at both sides of the same coin, building, growing different ways. So why don't we start with you, David, and just give us a little bit of why you chose to go private equity backed.
Yeah, so I'll give the Reader's Digest version. And before I begin, on certain days I'm really jealous of Pete. Like he gets to pick the days he wants to really go at it really hard, and then pick the days he wants to lay back a little bit. I used to have that luxury, but anyway.
No, I think that's good. Like, I want this back and forth because there's not a right or wrong way to do it. There's disadvantages at different times.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons, and so my Reader's Digest version is a number of years ago. Once I sort of had a light bulb moment and said, hey, Club Pilates might be a good vehicle to really try and scale and get some decent size. I saw an opportunity to acquire and continue to build new, acquire existing and build new around. So I was like, let's do this. It's sort of built the vision out to create a multi-brand, multi-unit franchise sort of, company. And Club Pilates is going to be sort of the initial big piece of that. Tried getting it, funded with lending relationships and self-funded, and that worked for a bit. And then COVID hit. I had always dabbled. I've been to Vegas for a few financing conferences and met with family offices and private equity, and tried to learn and sort of get connected in that world and just share my story and talk to folks and say, you know, what are ways to get funds? How's that math game work? What are the pros and cons? That whole thing. And then came an opportunity after COVID. Banks were not playing ball at the level that I wanted them to, and so you know, was able to connect with a small group that was looking to get into a similar type, I guess, franchising platform that I was trying to build, and we sort of got aligned and you know, made a decision, and really has been a good decision for us, and really been sort of a lot of the right time, right place that's allowed for some of this quick growth that we've had. So that's where we're at. Really excited about the future, but that's the Reader's Digest version of how I got into it.
David, your story of like kind of how did you decide that? Because when you told me the story, like, it was really powerful and impactful.
How did I decide to make
discussions with like your discussions with GAPA, and like, you know, we were partners at Franchise Ramp, and you sort of wanted to shift gears a little bit into franchising. Like, you have a cool story about that, right?
Good question. So I wanted to go big at some point in my life. I wanted to see, like, all right, let's do something bigger than myself. Let me try and play in the big leagues. And I didn't quite know what that meant, but I felt like I was still young enough to take a shot. And so that sort of, I call it my business midlife crisis. This was a number of years ago, where I was like, all right, what's my purpose? What am I going to do? What's the, you know, what does David at 50 years old look like and beyond, right? And so that's, you know, I drew out sort of the vision, drew out the sort of some big, gaudy, audacious goals that I wanted to hit. And that was that multi-brand, multi-unit franchising platform. At the time, private equity was identified as a way to get there, to help fund it. But the decision wasn't made at that point. It was really spurred along by, because I had lending relationships going into COVID. But, you know, coming out of COVID, sort of the whole game changed. But I did see a good short-term opportunity to do some acquisitions and really step on the gas pedal. So that's where private equity came in. Is that what you were getting at, Pete?
Yeah. And you kind of, it was a family decision as well. I mean, I think it was primarily, but like, you kind of involved everyone in that decision, including your kids, right?
Oh yeah. So we went to breakfast at some diner, and remember told the family what I was going to do. And, you know, before that, just made sure Jamie, my wife, we talked, and I was like, listen, are you on board for this? So if you rewind, like, I was very similar to sort of what I imagine your lifestyle is now, where, you know, you got a good spot. You can really control your calendar, really control your, you know, what you do and what you spend your time on. And you can travel when you want. You can not travel when you don't want. You can take phone calls when you want, and then vice versa. And that's sort of the stage we were at professionally. So I remember having that conversation. Listen, this is gonna be a lot of travel. I'm gonna be hitting it hard. You know, we're gonna have to lean on you at the you know, with the kids and all that good stuff. And, you know, she was on board. I was on board. The kids were on board. Now, one thing that I'm really proud about doing, looking back, and I'll continue to do this, is I do travel quite a bit. I'm working a whole lot more hours. I almost feel like I'm back starting my Liberty days, where I'm just married to what I do. But I did make a commitment to be at every one of Tanner's football games, and to be at, you know, the piano, you know, lessons, and taking my girls to their functions. And so I did make a point, regardless of what I'm doing, there's some non-negotiables with family, and that, I think that's been a good decision looking back, and it'll continue to be a good one.
Pete, I am so glad you asked that question. So both of you, this is like a conversation with the three of us. This is not Erik interviewing the two of you, because you guys know things about each other and about the business and the different models that I don't know. So please feel the freedom to ask follow-up questions and dive deeper like that. So
well, the more questions I ask, the less I have to talk. So.
That goes for you, David. Pete, he can't do any more questions. He gets 2 follow-ups and that's it.
Pete's like the stealth guy. He just sits back, but at the end of the day, he's the one that, you know, takes your lunch money. He's the one that always ends up ahead at the end of the day. He sits back, he'll ask the questions, stays sort of behind the scenes, but then he sneaks up on you. So
both of you guys have the Midas touch. Both of you guys have made several good moves in business and in franchising, and both of you place a high priority on family and relationship with your wives. And so it's one of the things that the three of us very much have in common. And so Pete, same question to you. Like, you know, you got involved with Club Pilates, but you have, you know, you could have gone and done something like David, or you could have just stayed and not grown very much. But to be at 16 Club Pilates is no small feat. And to do it the way that you've done it, truly working on your business, not in your business, is very impressive from the outside looking in. So give us a bit of your story and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I was we were all Liberty Tax franchisees, and that was always the vision. That we got to 5 units and then sold those in 2019. And the vision from the very beginning was always like, let's get to 20 units. We'll have 20 units by 2020. And so that's just, I think, similar to David and you know, a lot of the other people we know. It's just like, you just want to continue to grow. It's almost easier to own a business that continues to grow than a business that doesn't grow, because you can provide more opportunities for your people. And so when we got into Club Pilates, that was the idea. It was like, let's just continue to grow. So I think we started with 3, and then we in Arizona, and then we bought 2 more up in Ohio with a sweat equity partner up there. And then the pandemic hit, and so we sort of slowed a little bit. And then I think we bought 12 in the last 15 months or so, 12 units in the last 15 months or so. And kind of during that process, I went down the private equity path as well a little bit, and just talked to some individuals, you know, leaned on David a lot and got his thoughts and perspective. And I think one of the things that kind of drove me that way was just, I didn't have a really good, reliable banking partner. And now I feel really good about my banking partner. And so that's been helpful, just having that super reliable banking partner that you know you can go to, that you know really understands your business and your model. And so our goal now is 50 units by 2030. And so, you know, if we can do 5 a year, we're a little bit on a faster pace on that, right? But I don't want to say like, we're going to have 50 in 3 years and then just, just, wear ourselves out getting there. Cause and I think that's why I asked David the family question, right? It was like, I think that's an important piece of it too. And like, my kids are younger, they really want to be with me. David's kids probably don't want to be with him as much anymore. Right. I mean, that's what I hear anyways. I don't know if that's true or not, or hear generally, but so it's just sort of that idea of like, and the other thing too, I think is just like personal interests and like, I'd like to kind of plan businesses and like lay the foundation and get them started. And then I just like really start to, it sucks the tediousness of continuing to run, remodel businesses, pick out, like if you're thinking of a house, right? Like remodel the house, pick out drapes and curtains and, maybe do some add-ons, like really just drains me. And so, that's what I'm trying to kind of hope for, is giving myself some space to continue in other businesses, whether it's other franchises or anything else related to franchise ramp, because that's what really gives me energy, is sort of that number of different options out there.
Go ahead, David. Do you have a question?
No, I mean, I'm just sitting here wondering how in the world Pete comes up with 50 and 7 years. Like, you'll be there in a couple.
So good question. Pete, do you think you'll be
what's
there
called
sooner?
sandbagging.
Like, is that your real goal in 5 years, or is your real goal in 3 years and you just don't want to miss it?
It's probably smart.
I think what's the real, I think 50 is like kind of that 50 in 7 years was just 50 by 2030, and it had a good ring to it.
Yeah,
and it seemed to work out pretty well. That's more for like the team to say like, hey, to kind of be a guiding star to motivate the team. I think I've been sort of battling with, maybe not battling, but just thinking through that idea a little bit. Like, I don't know. And I was telling Crystal, who's my, key exec at the Club Pilates, I told her the other day, I said, we don't have to get to 50. We can off ramp at any point, right? Like, I'm very happy with the business and with where we are, and personally, family, financially, like, we can off ramp whenever you want to. But I think she'd rather have like 60 in 3 years. And so that's just the path we're going down. I trust her a ton. And obviously in franchising, there's a lot of hard assets. And so there's a lot of like contingent liabilities on owners, whether it's personal guarantees on leases or debt, et cetera. So I want to be slightly conscious of that, but really just try not to hold back the reins. If they want to do more than 50, great. If they want to do less, then this is where we're at.
Are you guys each signing personal guarantees on leases right now?
So I'm not anymore. No. So it's just, I did. So the strategy pre-private equity was sign them if I have to, and just the goal is to limit them as much as you can. But I wasn't going to lose a deal over a PG. I just think a little differently about it, and that might be a whole entirely different podcast episode. But now, no, it's just like, we just don't do it. Here's our financials. Here's the balance sheet. And it hadn't been an issue.
So the landlords get comfortable. Some of them get comfortable because there's such a strong balance sheet that is backed by private equity, and you have a track record with a lot of locations. Is that kind of the reason why they get comfortable versus if it was just you with 15 stores?
That's been my experience this past year. Yeah. You still have, there's on occasion, there's that initial like, oh, well, regardless, David, you need to get a PG, and then you end up talking to the real decision maker. I mean, it's the right thing for them. They're getting a strong tenant and a guarantee on a much higher assets than what maybe I have, personally. So,
Pete, I'm guessing you're still doing PGs, but
on the last deal, we're at 2 units. We didn't do any PGs there. And on the current ones we're going through right now, like, I don't think we'll have to, but it won't be a deal breaker. I got this idea from David. It's actually just how you present it to them, right? And so now
teach us. This is gold. How do you sign a lease and not being a personal guarantor? Take it away, Pete.
Well, I got to watch what I say, huh? No, but I think one, size is important, right? Like, to be able to show a profit and loss and balance sheet that's sizable, that's impactful to them, whether it's assets, et cetera. But then, like, I got this idea from David, like, we just go in, like, one, I don't do the introductions. My VP of finance handles all the contacts. So, like, they're not working with franchisee or owner, they're working with the VP of finance. And so you immediately start that conversation off differently from a different position than you would being a franchisee. And then just right up front, like, their VP of finance will give them a little package. It'll have our financials in it, a little overview of who we are, how many locations we have, and it looks nice and professional, so that they're like, oh, this is a real company, not, a franchisee that owns 1 or 2 or 3 units. And that's been helpful. We just started doing that with the last deal. That's been helpful there. It's been helpful so far in the deals we're doing right now, but that's obviously, we'll see where that lands. But it's painting that picture, that narrative for the landlord that, like, it's a real business. It's not a sole proprietorship or a, super closely held small company.
I love that. You don't have to be private equity backed by big money to be able to position yourself in the right way. David, anything to add to that? Since it wasn't Pete's original idea, it was yours, for the record.
I remember conversations with Pete. He's plenty smart to figure that stuff out. But it was one of these things where it's like, all right, let's get through these, time wasting conversations with landlords by just framing it differently, where we're not the typical tenant. Like, here's we are here. You only talk with the CFO or the VP of finance. That way a PG doesn't make sense in that context, because who are you going to get a PG with, right? So, I mean, does an officer or shareholders of Starbucks sign personal guarantees, right, when they go into a spot? Obviously, much larger company, but it's the same scenario. If you present yourself like a more sophisticated business, and you have a structure and a system, a lot of it, they take that cue.
Attention franchisors, if you are not bringing in many of the right franchisees, sales are slow. It's stealing too much of your time as a founder trying to award franchises to the right franchisee. There's a better way to do it. That's why I started the Franchise Sales Mentor. If you want to have access to the information, the techniques, the ways that the best franchise sales organizations are awarding franchisees, then you might want to check out the Franchise Sales Mentor. The reasons that franchisors join is because they want access. They want access to my Rolodex. They want access to my connections. They want access to shortcut both short-term and long-term success to increase enterprise value to their brand.
What I'd be interested, and this is something that, following Pete's and mine, I think I'll speak for me, but I'm pretty sure it's happened in Pete's journey, is the eye-opening sort of aha moment of building a team, right? So when we were Liberty, it was, all right, you got a franchise owner and then regional managers and managers as you scale. But now it's like, all right, you have a VP of finance, you have a payroll manager, you have, I don't know what other positions you have, Pete, but on my end, we have a HR functions, we have operations functions, we have support functions. So it's building that team is another key piece of how you think about your business. And if you think about building that sort of support function, that cost, structure, it's going to take away from your short-term P&L, but it allows you to scale tremendously, right? Because then it becomes a business and a company, not a sole proprietor that's just, framed as an LLC or framed as a corporation, right? I don't know if I framed that right. Pete, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely at Liberty, I was the district manager of the 5 stores, and we had some operations person and a back office manager, but I was the point person. And then, for the first 3 Club Pilates, it was the same thing. I was the point person. And then I remember I had a good relationship with those 3 studio managers. And then one of them left, and I was like, shit, I don't want to hire a new studio manager and develop that relationship. And that's when Franchise Ramp was starting up. And I was just like, this is the perfect time for a district manager. So that's what we started there. And then when we, it was almost kind of the same thing when we started adding different sort of territories and areas. It's like, okay, well, now we need another district manager. And then, Crystal's been with me on that journey for a while. Now she's kind of filled in as our like VP of ops that, she would fill district manager roles if they're empty, but then she has a district managers report to her. And so that's been, useful on the operations side. Yeah. And then on the finance side, VP of finance, payroll person, some executive assistants, et cetera. And that's just a journey, right? Because there's no blueprint for that. And every organization is different and every skill set is different and every owner is different what they want. And so there's no blueprint. Like the franchisor doesn't give you a blueprint for that. You just really need to figure that out.
Yeah. But I would say to me, that's been an aha moment, like building that team around the business to help propel that growth helps to keep us a little bit sane, right? And one thing about, I think I've met a few of your folks, Pete, and I would say the same thing about my team. Like when you have really top-notch people that you surround yourself with, that you lead, like it's really beautiful thing what gets accomplished. it's really cool to work, and it's a lot of fun to work with really top-notch, good folks, good character folks that get to do all the stuff that maybe you're not as good at, and then you can focus as the leader. You can, I can focus on what I think I'm good at and best suited for, and Pete gets to do what he wants to do with his time as well. So
yeah,
I don't know why that was an aha moment for me over the last number of years.
I had that recently from well, kind of over time, but like really just more recently, I would say that idea of like, wow, like Crystal is better at me than everything to do in managing this business. Like other than like, some of the vision and the, that I can provide, and some of the, maybe the more strategy and legal, et cetera, but like she's just way better, like 100% way better than how I would be able to like, I'm a very good leader. I'm like not a good manager. And I think I've always fooled myself into being like, oh, I'm a pretty good manager. Like I can do this. And now it's just like, no, like I'm not. And so that's kind of the fun moment when you're like, wow, like I have a whole group of people, that work with me that are way better at me than everything. They're way better than me and way better than I could ever imagine. So yeah, that's like, David, I think you used the word beautiful. That really resonates with me as well.
I realized I wasn't a very good manager when I had one of my managers cry when we were on a conference call. And then my buddy, Dan Castellini, who's former Liberty Tax franchisee that we all know, he's like, Erik, you're not that great at, communicating this type of thing to the manager. So it took me a while too, to realize I'm a better leader than I am a manager of people. And seeing, friends, some of our mutual friends are great managers of people and really good leaders. I'm a better leader, visionary, connector, strategist than I am a manager of people. What about you, Schuck?
So
Schuck's the leader breed. He's an amazing manager and an amazing leader.
I don't know. I got some flaws on the management side, but yeah, I think I'm an above average leader. I do like to think I enjoy leading people. I do like making decisions. I think that's also a function of sort of experience, right? I mean, one of the things, I think this is underappreciated, but the fact that we ran businesses that were seasonal in nature, where every day was a week's worth of business, every week was a month's worth of business, right? As far as everything was crammed and compacted, as far as the business sort of cycle, we were forced to make decisions fast and learn from our mistakes. And I think that time in Liberty, all those years and all those decisions that we make really helped, I don't know, for me, helped shape my ability to be, I think, an above average decision maker. I make decisions fast, and when they're wrong, I'm not afraid to readjust and change directions. So I do look at that as something that I bring value to the business with. And the last thing, I think just over time and by doing it, I think one of my values is for some reason I do a decent job acquiring, making deals, and finding good locations for new development. So and I really enjoy doing that. So that's sort of how I view a picture of where my time is best used.
Speaking of our Liberty days, the thing, I was just, Stacy Barnes, remember Stacy Barnes, Erik?
Heck yeah. Stacy comes and speaks to the mastermind at different times.
Does
he was
he?
like
Yeah.
the amazing trainer there.
Yeah, he was at Expo Convention, and so it was great catching up to him, saw him a number of different times. And one of the things I told him, I said, do you still have the little pamphlet from Liberty called Leveraging, I think it was Leveraging Superstars or Leveraging Rock Stars? And I can't find it, but that's been like really transformational in my journey. And like the main thing and the main value I've gotten from Liberty and John Hewitt has been that idea of like, how do you find superstars, cultivate them, and then leverage them into greater success? And so, the example they used there a lot was like, kind of making sweat equity partners or franchise, making them franchisees where you're still the owner. And I see that that's just been so transformative for me. there's many different ways to do that and structure that, but like the idea of like setting a foreseeable future for your key superstars, right? Like, hey, superstar, here's the path that you can be on. We're going to continue to grow and expand, and you're going to have this opportunity or these opportunities, and this is what this means for you career-wise, professionally, family, financially, et cetera. And so that everyone has a foreseeable future, especially your key superstars. That was the thing that's been the most impactful to me from our Liberty days.
So money grows on trees for David. You know, there's just piles of money like Scrooge McDuck. You just can't, it never ends. Pete, you said you have a good banking partner now. If you didn't find that good banking partner, I'm guessing you wouldn't be where you are today. What does that good banking partner look like?
Well, it's Navitas Corp, which is a kind of a credit company, like a bank, but it's a subsidiary of a bank. I mean, David works with them too, right, David?
Yes, I work with Navitas and their parent bank. Yep.
I think two things. I think they really get the business model, and like, you know, once you kind of get enough reps with someone, I think that makes sense. And then they do have a deep relationship with the franchisor that we work with. Like there's you know, communication between, you know, the head of Navitas and you know, some of the senior executives at Expo is my understanding. And so I think that's helpful. There's just really good relationships at all levels. So.
That was very similar to us when we were growing solo salons. You know, each one was $1 million to open up. So we spent about $12 million in 5 years to be able to do that. We wouldn't have been able to do it without two strategic banking partners that we had. Like we would not have been able to get to 12 units. We probably would have been stuck at maybe 4 to 6 locations. So big fan of having strategic banking relationships. And I love it when they're tied into the franchisor as well. And then you start to understand how banking really works. And they don't have endless amounts of money necessarily, because there's different ways that they have to you know, lend money and whatnot. So anything that you guys have learned over the past maybe 2 to 3 years about banking relationships that you didn't know in our Liberty days?
Great question.
You know, everyone's like, find a good banker. Like it took me 10 years to do that. And I didn't think it was possible. So I think that's just the thing I've learned, is that the right partners out there, sometimes it just takes time. And it's amazing. Yeah. And every bank is like, there's this bank that sponsors our local EO chapter. And I was working with them a little bit and just kind of picking their brains a bit. And they were just like, yeah, like we could, you know, do up to 3 studios for you. And that's it. Like, it just wasn't in their wheelhouse. It wasn't in their risk portfolio, you know, kind of risk ratios to, you know, do more than that. And so it's just not worth our time to proceed down that route. And I think there's just a lot of banks like that. Like it's just isn't their sweet spot. So finding that lender that, you know, really knows your business and likes your business. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to work. I mean, just like anything, you got to work that relationship, build it. You got to, I always talk about, you got to get to the point where they pick the phone up when you call. And if they do, that's a sign of a good relationship. So, especially when you need them, but, yeah, working that relationship, I would say on the banking side, keeping clean books, setting expectations and sticking to them. I think one of the lessons I've learned in the past from banking is when you try to sort of oversell what's happening with either yourself, or if you're doing an acquisition, the seller, you get into problems at the end, because banks inherently are sometimes slow, and they're sometimes, you know, a little bit heavy on the red tape, which, you know, I totally get the reasons. So the world goes around a lot faster, a lot easier if you set expectations ahead of time. Number one, with your lending partner, but number two, with whoever you're trying to do the transaction with, right? So set it with yourself and give yourself extra time. Don't try and, you know, don't try and create unrealistic deadlines that create massive amounts of stress and set yourself up for failure and set the bank up for failure.
So what does an
sense?
exit look like for each of you? Pete, you're going to sell to David. He's a deal maker, so be careful with that. No, what does an exit? What does an exit or possible exits look like for each of you, given two different strategies of growing?
You know that famous business saying, like, plan your exit from the beginning, you know? I haven't done that at all. So I'm not following it. I don't, I don't have a real clear response other than, like, if I were to get some insane offer, I think I'd have to think about it. But, like, I'm still 4 to 7, 8, 9 years out from that, I think, from making a transaction. I think, and I think really going back to what I said earlier, it's just up to my team. Like, what do they want to do? Like, I don't have a super big desire to, continue without Crystal or without some of our other key execs. Like, I just like the people I work with a lot, and that's what makes it worthwhile to me.
Yeah, this is a tough one to answer. I think what an exit, when I hear the word exit, I think typically people think that's the day that you sort of you sign some papers and all of a sudden a big wire comes into your bank account. And I think that's probably the exit for a lot of businesses that sell at a scale. The way I think about it is it's not something where I'm viewing it as riding off into the sunset, stop working and just, have fun. I view it as an exit as an opportunity to level up. So it's maybe, okay, let's use this liquidity event to go to whatever that next level or that next phase, whether it's the same business or whether it's a new project. And then I do look at it as it's an opportunity to take some chips off the table and diversify. So, but never have looked at it as a true exit. Maybe that's something that'll happen a couple decades from now, but I'm not thinking about exiting anytime soon in the true sense of the word.
I would say the one thing that David and I both do is, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, on a monthly basis, we do track enterprise value. So, like, we know the value of our business, and, like, that's, part of the performance review, et cetera, for our VP or my VP of Ops and VP of Finance is built around that idea of, like, enterprise value. Like, what is the value of the enterprise and is it increasing? So there's a number of ways to look at that, right? But, like, that's, like, a focus for us. Like, it's not just about the cash flow. It's like, what is the enterprise value of the business and is it growing over time? So that we know, if we wanted to sell tomorrow, what it would be worth or most likely be worth.
So when each of you are looking at enterprise value, do you basically take the EBITDA and throw a multiple on it of maybe 3.5 to 4.5x, and that would be considered enterprise value, or is it a little bit more detailed than that?
I think that's like, I think typically enterprise value is like a multiple of, like, trailing 12 month in our space, trailing 12 month EBITDA. I think on the smaller end, like, if you're if you have 3 units, you're probably getting a 2.5 to maybe a 4 multiple, maybe a 4 on an earnout, depending on the brand. I think for bigger platforms, the bigger you get, the higher the multiple. So David's multiple is higher than my multiple, but my multiple is probably higher than, 3.5, 4. But, I guess you don't know until you sell, right? And so I think what we do is we just take a range, right? Like, we take a range of, of kind of from 3 to 6 is what we do, and just say, like, where are we here, And if it ends up being 7, 8, fantastic, great. But, like, I think just kind of having a range is helpful. I don't know, David, your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's well said. It's a range, but it only matters on the day that it happens because that's what the reality is. But I would say the larger my my understanding is the larger the platform, enterprise value, the larger structure, you can start creeping up in multiples. The one interesting thing that's interesting to me is there is a value placed on future growth or future growth opportunities. So they call it white space is the term. And so you're not just selling that, what did you do the last year, but you're selling that sort of, all right, what is the growth opportunity look ahead? Do you have opportunity for new builds and in franchising? Do you have opportunity for continued acquisitions? What's your path to double this in size? And that, the more attractive story that you can create around there, my understanding is that enhances the attractiveness and the valuation as well.
So you guys both run big businesses now, 16 units, 50 units. What do you wish you would have known years ago when you had 3 units open that you know today? What are you doing today that you're like, if I would have done this when I had 1, 2, or 3 or 4 units open, would have really helped me out? Anything?
I wish I wouldn't have been as complacent with the people I had, especially in my Liberty days. Like I had very good people, but like now seeing how fantastic the people I have now are, I would have maybe made some changes earlier in my career. I think I see a lot of other franchisees, go down a similar path where, you hire someone, you have all this sunk cost, time, energy into them, and they're good and you're getting performance, you're making money. But there's that nagging feeling behind you where you're like, oh, maybe there's someone else out there. If you have that nagging feeling, there probably is someone else. And I wish I would have remembered that sooner.
Yeah, I would say I learned one of the more valuable lessons I learned early on was you can't do it all yourself. And that seems simplistic, but I think it's human nature for a lot of folks to become entrepreneurs, to think it's all about them. And once you have that mindset sort of shift from there's other people that can do it better than me, and it's about creating something bigger than just me, that's a cool place and good things start to happen after that. I would say another lesson I learned is, I think I'm still learning, is don't place any artificial sort of ceilings or limiting ideas about what kind of journey you'll, or in game or where you'll be, right? So I used to think, man, this is cool. How in the world would I ever get to have 10 liberties, right? But, set an audacious goal and go about making it happen. There's always somebody or plenty of people that have done what you want to do. Find out who they are, talk to them, learn from them, listen to Erik's podcast, and you'll be surprised how much you can get if you just identify where you want to go.
So here's the deal with the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. It's full of a bunch of successful franchisees across many different industries, many different brands, and you get to be a part of that. Now, if you've had any level of success in franchising, you've probably been around top performing Zees in your current brand. So think about that. And if you could do that with 40 plus different brands, industries, franchisees, that's the value in the mastermind. I bring in some of the best speakers in the world. We talk about some topics that will never be talked about anywhere else. So if you're interested in being a part of a group like that, check out franchisetribe.com. When did you guys get comfortable going big? Because there's so many different brands out there. Not all brands are created equal by any means. You guys are part of Club Pilates, which has a lot of successful franchisees, and you decided to go big with them. Like, what got you comfortable accepting other people's money, or just putting more of your own money, time, effort, and energy into it? What was it? What were the things about the brand itself, or the franchisees, or the franchisor that helped you get really comfortable?
Yeah. Hey, Erik, I just want to go back to one thing around the banking relationship that wasn't clear. So you
Hey man, if you said that's just a bad question, Pete, just call me out on a bad question.
No, I love the question. I was
No,
actually
go
excited
back
about
to
that question.
banking, and
Yeah.
then we'll go back to this question.
I just want, because I think it provides a lot of context for the interview. So like, I have a partner in this business. I have a minority financial partner who's my father in the Club Pilates business. And so that helps a lot. Well, two things in our relationship. I think one thing is that it's like I'm the CEO of the company, right? And he's an investor, and that relationship is very, very clear. And we actually don't have a formal board. Like I am the board person as well. And so that sort of clear delineation of responsibilities, I think, is good. But he's super helpful from his net worth, which isn't like a crazy amount, right? But like it's when banks are looking at you, they're like, oh, it's nice that there's two of you, and the net worth is more substantial with the two of you. And so that's been super helpful in our growth and with our bank. Our banking partner probably wouldn't be as excited about it if they didn't have his PG on some of the things we've been doing. And so that's, and it's interesting to me, I never really realized this of once you have a partner in a franchise concept, you sort of become wed to that partner. Like you can't just go off and do like other units on your own, because the bank's going to want to tie them in anyways. And so, you're married to that partner, literally, like it's a, marriage, unless you do a completely separate business, or, like if you, for instance, do a hand and stone, et cetera. So yeah, I didn't mention that. I wanted to mention that because I think it kind of clarifies the banking and how, it's not just like me individually in the bank, but it's me, my father, any other partners, if you have them at some point. That entire relationship is important.
That's a really good point, because we wouldn't have been able to secure the banking relationships that we did at Sola if there wasn't four of us on those agreements. So really good point. Even though you totally dodged my question. Yeah. Good point. All right, real quick. What do you two like? We got to go. What happened to get you guys comfortable going big with Club Pilates?
It works. I mean, I go to my studios and talk to members, and you have different conversations, you hear different things from them than you would hear at any other type of a fitness facility. There's true believers in our core customer at our studios, and there's a community about it. The folks that work in our studios and work with us are passionate about Pilates, passionate about fitness, passionate about helping people's lives. And I think that takes that gets us a considerable head start, right? When you have that type of sort of alignment of the stars, then a lot of other things sort of fall in place. So I would definitely say, it's not every business you can scale at the speed that Pete and I have. We're definitely in front of a little bit of a wave, right? We got in the middle of a trend, and we're taking advantage of it. But yeah, I guess I can just say it works. It works for our members. It's a great product.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it works. That's the best thing, right? People love it. Our members love it, and our people, our employees, absolutely love the product and the service that we offer. And I think those two things, yeah, we're riding a wave, and we're fortunate to be on that wave. And I think David and I both always say that, like, we're just very fortunate to be part of a brand that, it works so well, but then also has really great leadership, kind of guiding the way as well.
So members love it. When we say it works, members love it. Employees love it. The right employees, you're able to hire them, and they enjoy what they do for the wage that they get and the job description that they have. And then obviously it has to work financially for the banks to lend money, for private equity to be involved, and all of that entails. Gents, it's been fun. Thanks for coming on. I was hoping we could duke it out a little bit more, but I guess that's what happens when you get three friends on a Zoom. You just get some really good conversations. So I appreciate it, you three, or you two.
Yeah. Happy to do this. This was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, Erik, and can't wait to be on the next podcast with you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, Erik. Had a blast.
See you
Thank you.
guys.
Take care.
All right. See ya.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.